Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine when you're all alone at night? There's something about the absence of light that triggers a primal fear within us. It's a psychological response, deeply ingrained in our DNA from a time when darkness meant danger, when it concealed predators lurking in the shadows. It's a familiar feeling, isn't it? The heart pounding, the adrenaline rushing, the heightened senses, all because you're alone, in the dark. Tonight we delve into a tale where an ordinary evening spirals into a night of terror. Picture a man, our protagonist, who begins his evening like any other. He's comfortable, relaxed, unaware of the fear that the coming night will bring. As the sun dips below the horizon, the familiar becomes unknown, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And so, our protagonist found himself alone as the sun set and darkness took hold. Imagine sitting in your living room, engulfed by silence so profound it's almost deafening. You're nestled in your favorite chair, the familiar hum of your home absent, the reassuring tick-tock of the clock is missing, the comforting buzz of the refrigerator is gone. All that remains is an eerie quietude, a silence so deep it seems to consume every sound, leaving an unsettling void in its place. Our protagonist is a rational man, one who dismisses the supernatural, who laughs off the ghost stories and urban legends. But as the minutes tick by, this silence begins to gnaw at his sanity. He finds himself straining his ears, desperate for any semblance of sound, any break in this oppressive quiet. In the deafening silence, the smallest sounds become magnified. The creak of a settling house, the whisper of wind against the window, the distant hoot of an owl, all amplified in the quiet, each one a potential threat. The protagonist's heart pounds in his chest, a loud drum in the otherwise silent room. His palms are damp with sweat, his mind racing with fear. It's a fear born not of the known but of the unknown, of the silence and what it may conceal. Silence, you see, has an uncanny ability to amplify our fears. It's in the silence that our imaginations run wild, filling in the blanks with the most terrifying scenarios. It's in the silence that we feel most vulnerable, most exposed, our senses heightened as we wait for something, anything to break the quiet. As our protagonist sits there, lost in his thoughts, a faint sound reaches his ears. It's unidentifiable, a mere wisp of a sound, barely discernible against the backdrop of silence. He cocks his head, straining to hear, his heart pounding in his chest. The sound is faint, almost drowned out by the thunderous beat of his heart. But it's there. A soft, distant noise that seems to echo through the silence. The sound was faint, distant, yet it sent a shiver down his spine. It was a harbinger of what was to come, a precursor to the terror that awaited him in the silence. What do you do when you sense an unseen presence in your house? That's the question that our protagonist found himself asking. The night had grown deeper, and the stillness was punctuated by the erratic ticking of an old clock. It was in this quiet that he began to feel it, a prickling sensation at the back of his neck, a cold shiver creeping down his spine. He was not alone. The house seemed to breathe with him, creaking and settling in the darkness. He heard a faint rustling sound, like whispering leaves, or perhaps the soft shuffling of feet. Then a low hum, almost a growl, echoed through the empty halls. It was an orchestra of eerie sounds that seemed to be playing just for him. You see, the unknown has a particular kind of terror, a monster under the bed, a ghost in the attic, a creature lurking in the shadows. These are all fearsome because they are known entities. You can prepare for them, you can fight them, you can run away, but how do you combat a threat that you can't see, that you can't identify? The fear of the unknown, it said, is the most intense fear of all. But our protagonist was not one to cower. He was a man of action, a man who confronted his fears head on. As the strange sounds continued, he decided to investigate. He knew that he needed to find the source of his unease, to put a face to this faceless terror. So he steeled his nerves, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. His hands were steady, though they were cold, and his breath was measured, though it was shallow. He moved with deliberation, each step a testament to his resolve. He was prepared for whatever he might find, ready to face the unknown. The house seemed to hold its breath as he ventured deeper into its shadowy depths, the strange sounds growing louder, more insistent. His fear was palpable, but so was his bravery. Summoning his courage, he decided to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. What's more terrifying than the unknown? The moment it becomes known. As our protagonist moved through the eerie silence of his home, the unsettling reality of his situation began to sink in. Signs of intrusion were everywhere. The feeling of violation was palpable. The once familiar rooms felt like alien landscapes, each corner teeming with unseen threats. His sanctuary had been breached, his personal space invaded. His heart raced, a frantic metronome in the quiet night. He was alone, but the signs all around him screamed otherwise. The furniture was subtly misplaced, and objects were not where he last left them. It was as if someone, or something, had meticulously explored his space, leaving behind a trail of disturbing breadcrumbs. The sense of dread was a living entity, wrapping its icy tendrils around his mind, squeezing tighter with each passing second. His home was no longer a haven of safety, but a stage for this macabre play of violation and fear. The walls, once his fortress, now seemed to close in on him. His safe haven had transformed into an eerie tableau of terror. His breath hitched as he stumbled upon a note. A disturbing message written in an unfamiliar hand was left on his dining table. His hands trembled as he picked up the piece of paper. His eyes scanned the scribbled words, each letter a chilling testament to his nightmare. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, a deafening drum that drowned the silence. His pulse quickened as he read the message. The words were simple, yet they held a terrifying implication. It was a stark reminder that he was not alone in his own home. His sanctuary had been invaded, his solitude shattered. His worst fears were no longer just shadows lurking in the dark corners of his mind. They were real, tangible, and they were right there with him. His heart pounded in his chest as he read the chilling message, "You're not alone." Can fear push a person beyond their limits? As our protagonist found themselves trapped in their own home, this question was about to be answered in the most chilling way. With every door locked, every window sealed, escape seemed impossible. The walls that once provided comfort and security now felt like a prison. In the face of this terrifying predicament, the human mind does something fascinating. It triggers the fight or flight response. This primal instinct, honed over countless generations, prepares us to confront danger head-on or to flee from it at the fastest possible speed. But what happens when both options are taken away? What happens when you are left alone, cornered with the source of your fear? In this moment, our protagonist found their fight. The adrenaline coursing through their veins lent them a newfound strength, a determination to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. The intruder, the source of all this terror, was about to meet a force to be reckoned with. As they turned the corner, heart pounding in their chest, they came face to face with the intruder. But in the stark light, the terrifying shadow morphed into something entirely different. The monster that had been stalking them through the night was no more than a prankster, a human being, armed with nothing more than a twisted sense of humor and a knack for picking locks. The terror that had gripped our protagonist began to recede, replaced by a potent mix of relief, anger, and disbelief. The night of terror, the chilling discovery, and the fight for survival had all been a cruel joke. But the fear had been real, as had the courage that had propelled them to confront it. This is the power of fear. It can distort our perception, turning harmless shadows into monstrous threats. It can trap us within our own homes, within our own minds. But it can also reveal our strength, our resilience, our ability to confront and overcome our darkest nightmares. Our protagonist had lived through a night of terror, a night that would leave an indelible mark on their memory. But they had also discovered a well of courage within themselves, a strength that they may not have known they possessed. They had faced their fear, confronted it, and come out the other side. As the sun rose, our protagonist was left with a nightmarish memory and a story to tell. Remember, things aren't always as they seem, especially when you're alone at night. Fear can play tricks on your mind, warping reality into a horror story. But as our protagonist discovered, it can also reveal the hero within you, ready to fight when all seems lost.